Color talk, color talk, color talk, talking about color.
I'm Kelly Edwards. I'm the SVP of Talent Development for Warner Media Entertainment, which encompasses HBO, HBO Max, and the Turner properties, which are TBS and TNT. This is the very first in our Color Talk series. Our event today is going to be, I think, a very special one because during this very challenging time, we're going to be able to have a conversation with Bruce Evans, who's our VP, and Vernon Sanders, who has been a longtime participant, member, advocate, sponsor for this group. Just to sort of go back and rewind a little bit, I think a lot of you know this history because we say it at almost every event.
Say it every time. Kelly Edwards has been truly the guiding light of this organization, and so much that we have accomplished is directly due to her, and I cannot let her go forward without acknowledging that from the very top. I tell her this all the time. She inspires me in terms of when she sets her mind to do something, she makes it happen. And she has made this organization what it is today in terms of getting us, and she'll talk about this, our new status that we have, and she has been a driving force for our events and our newsletter and our website. I mean, the list goes on and on. That is why she is the president of this organization, because she deserves to be the president. And I think we all owe her a tremendous amount of thanks for all the blood, sweat, and tears that she has put into this organization. So I want to say that up front. And thank you, Kelly, for all that you have done.
And thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that. All right, so let's get to it. The first part of this is going to be a conversation between me and Bruce. And then I'm going to hand it over to Bruce, and Bruce will have a conversation with Vernon Sanders, the co-head of programming for Amazon, as you know. So Bruce, this has been a very challenging year. We've seen a lot of death of our Black brothers and sisters. We've seen ongoing attacks on DACA. We've seen families housed in warehouses and cages. In the midst of all of this, we've had to, as executives, navigate having to show up to work every day and either explain ourselves, revisit the trauma that we've had. It's been a very personally challenging time for me, given where I've been. But I actually recently found something that I had written in a journal from 1996 about a casting session that I'd had on a pilot, 2 pilots actually, and that I was raising my hand then for more diversity. And I realized I've been fighting this fight for a really, really long time. Now that we're here in this space, I want to know, how are you doing?
You know, like you said, I think this whole situation has brought up a lot of memories of events and experiences that have happened over the course of our careers. I mean, you and I have been in this for a long time. I'm at like 25 and you're even more than me. And I think it's important.
Thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate that.
Not much more. But I think it's important for the group to know that, like, as you see how emotional Kelly is, and I feel that, because I certainly have had those times myself, that even for us who have been in this job for a long time and have risen to, levels of senior management, it's still hard. So, what you're feeling day to day, you don't know. I mean, I want you to know that, like, we experience what you're experiencing. And that's part of the sadness, is that we, even though we've been in this business and we've survived as long as we have, we still have the same frustrations and pains and sometimes feeling of like, is there any hope that things are going to get better? But we have all of them. Because I feel like we've been here before and no progress was made. And I'm like wondering, is this good? Because there was a time, I don't remember how many years ago it was, but when diversity was a big topic, and suddenly it was, it was the Entertainment Weekly, and they had the top 25 diverse executives in town. And there were all these things that were written. And there were all these commitments that were made by the networks and by studios or whatever. And it just feels like it was the hot topic for a year or two, and then suddenly kind of those that, but not even a year or two. I mean, like maybe a year, and then it just feels like that commitment went away. And so,
But doesn't this
yeah,
feel different? It feels a little different.
This does feel different. But having been, we have been through this before, and so it's hard not to have that voice in the back of your head saying, even though it feels different, will it actually be different? And so, I certainly hope and pray, but I also I see people kind of flailing in terms of, what do we do? What do we do? Like, and I don't know if it's being really well thought out in terms of how these organizations are reacting to what's happening. I think the thing to do is to come out with, making your pledge of like all this money that you're going to put towards it. But when it comes to like, okay, well, what does that mean? Where will that money be applied? There's still very much like, well, we'll see, we'll work it out. And so I just hope that some well thought out planning is done, and planning that will have impact. We talk about, one of the programs that has been around for the networks for a long time is the Diverse Writers Program, which, is a pipeline program, and, certainly a lot of writers have benefited from that. But I think we really want to make sure that mid to high level voices are happening, because
Right.
that is where true change occurs. And if you're a staff writer on a show, you're just glad to be in the room, so you're not going to rock the boat by speaking up and voicing kind of why you feel something was offensive or whatever, or should be written in this way as opposed to the way you want to write it. And so it's just really important that as an example is that we make sure that we're adding people that will have a true voice in the room to make sure things change. And it also means for the executive ranks, we have got to make progress in the executive ranks. They have got to put real attention to making sure that we're getting folks into the boardrooms, because without that it just, real change doesn't happen. And when I think back to kind of the multiple of experiences over these 25 years, when I started, I think I was the only African-American male in programming at any of the 4 broadcast networks. And the sad thing today is, I think I'm pretty close to being, if not being that all over again 25 years later. Certainly at NBC, there's no black men in programming. I don't know any at CBS. I don't know anybody at ABC. So maybe Fox, but I don't even know if there's anybody at Fox. And so that's a really sad statement to be able to say that that is the case again after all these years. And then when Vernon, who's going to be with us soon, when the two of us were together at NBC, it was like, hallelujah, like we gotta actually have a group.
Right.
It's amazing. And so I just want to make sure, and thinking about all the experiences that we've had, and knowing how much things have not changed, I just really hope and pray that this truly is different, and that we really will make strides in terms of making sure that we have a true voice in the creative direction and just the management of this business.
Michelle Schultz, a question. Her question was, what are examples of some specific actions we can demand from the companies we work for, besides the additional hiring and promoting of Black employees and donating money to grassroots organizations, which is going to help quite a bit. We have to demand from our companies that they employ casting directors of color. That's so important. Mm-hmm. We have to demand that they are casting their shows with people of color in lead roles. I cannot think of an Asian lead on any of the brands that I have at the moment. I'm trying to think. I think the closest one was Cinemax had somebody in Warrior, or it was a whole cast. But I mean, we have to demand those changes. We have to demand that they look at their overall deals, because if you look at the wealth that goes into the overall deals, ask your companies to please give you the list of overall deals. That should not be proprietary information. You should be able to ask for that information. But those overall deals put wealth and money into the pockets of a few. And if you look at the number and you look at the percentage of people of color who get that money represents the ability for people to take risks, financial security. It means that those are the people who are being hired to run shows. And if they're only relegated to running the Asian show if they're Asian and the Black show if they're Black, then that's a problem. But money is important. That overall deal, those pod deals, those are the people who are choosing who is going to go into pitch in the first place. So we need to make sure. And if you think about all of the best Black showrunners right now, or Asians, everybody who's at the top of their game, look and see if they have an overall deal. I guarantee you that the majority of those numbers or percentages, they don't. Even though they've been working at a very high level, they are not getting the same kinds of financial security that allows you to take creative risks. You know, and also look at the executive ranks. Yes, it's important to know that there's going to be somebody in your department, but if that person is a manager or a director and doesn't have somebody else that they could go to at a higher level, that's a problem. They don't have a voice, as you said, for like a writer in a room. But the other part of that is look at and demand from your HR group. Now, I say demand. Now I'm saying demand is as a, you know, you decide. It's not going to necessarily be, it might be you and a couple of other people who form a coalition, go in together and have a conversation. But you need to be able to say, let me look at the org chart and see how far down the food chain it is from someone at the top of the food chain down to the person of color with the most power. Because if you look at that, you're looking at your succession planning for the company. And you're looking at, well, if that person is a director level, it's going to take them 6 steps to get up there. And is that person being looked at for those stretch assignments and the leadership programs? Is that person getting the best shows to work on? You know, what kinds of budgets are they able to work on? Are they getting the depth of experience that they need in order to rise up and to be seen at the top of the pyramid? Because we look around and, you know, when we had Kevin Tsujihara over at Warner Brothers, it was like, yay. But then you look around and there's not that many Kevin Tsujiharas and Vanessa Morrisons out there. So we need to be able to get up there. We tend to roll out at VP or SVP because the culture is too hard. So we need to figure out how are we going to sustain that.
Well, I think also the compensation for executives has to be tied to goals of inclusion in terms of the executive ranks. And so when people feel it in their pockets, their wallets, their pocketbooks, whatever, that I think can be helpful in truly investing people in making some change. Because right now it's just like, we encourage, we hope, we recommend, but if your salary is tied to whether you meet quantitative objectives in terms of diversity and inclusion, then that's going to put some fire under your rear end to make sure that those things happen. So I think that's another thing. And I also think that people need to have champions, because, you know, a lot of people in these organizations have high-level champions that look out for them and push them forward. And we don't often benefit from that. And so I think there needs to be a commitment from these companies in terms of mentorship that put people of color with actual senior management that they can engage and have relationship with, that will hopefully lead to them having a relationship that leads to that person being a champion. But in terms of production, at least for us, you know, everything has been shut down, obviously. And we weren't able to film the pilots that we had intended to film. We got through, I think, maybe 85% of one of our drama pilots, but that was it. And we didn't get to film any of our comedies. And so we've announced that we're going to go back and actually film, I think, 3 of those comedies in the future. You know, it's been incredibly difficult to try to figure out how we're going to get back up and running. And literally today, New York just announced its guidelines for how they anticipate we will go back. And if you read some of those guidelines, it's going to be incredibly tough to live by those guidelines. They don't want any more than 10 people, working on a production, on a scene. Like, that's never going to work.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, these guidelines are going to be incredibly tough. So we're hoping that we can get back into production in August, September, but we're going to have to work through the guidelines of the various states where we film, which includes New York, Illinois, Canada. The moving of talent back and forth is going to be incredible. There are so many challenges, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, that it just makes an incredibly daunting experience. And so for right now, we're charging ahead, trying to figure out all that will be needed, but we don't have a definite timeline as to when we know we'll be back in production. And I think that really counts for much of the town.
There was talk a few weeks ago about going to Iceland and New Zealand, and I'm thinking, why would Iceland and New Zealand want people coming?
I know,
anyway,
it's like, let's bring these people, and if you go to those places, you got to quarantine for 14 days.
Right. Well, so, they're not letting Americans go anywhere now.
Yeah, I know, we're not allowed in the country.
That'd be a moot point.
So there you go.
This is from Stevenson Green. Thank you, Stevenson. Sometimes it feels as a person of color that it's hard to achieve further growth, especially when it comes to promotions and hiring, no matter how hard you try. Real talk. What did you do to achieve the growth that you have?
Yeah, I mean, this is where I feel like champions really helped me in the past. I had someone really help me to get to the next level in terms of, I was a VP for 7 years, and it took a champion to help me to get to that next level. That's why I just think it's so important to have those connections to senior management, because that can really guide. Now, obviously, everybody can't have that, but that's one of the things that we talked to you previously. It's one of the things we need to ask for, as our bosses are telling us, what can we do to help you? Well, we need to ask for those people who can not only be a road to advancement, but also guide us in terms of our development and to be truly the strongest executives that we can be.
All right, I'm going to throw this over to you, Bruce, and Thank you for joining us, Vernon. Welcome to this conversation. I'm going to jump off, and then I will be back at the very end if anybody needs me. But thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Kelly.
So, Mr. Sanders. All right, everybody. So you should know that I've known this man for many, many years. He is one of the loveliest people that I've known in my career. He was once my boss, but more than that, he's been my friend forever. And this is truly one of the good guys in this town. And it has been my honor to be considered his friend. And I am so proud of all that he's accomplished, because it's so incredibly well deserved. And so we now know him as co-head of television at Amazon Studios after a really long and successful career at other companies. But the fact that he is the co-head of television is a testament to the hard work this man has put into this career, and a testament to his relationships, because you will not find anybody, or maybe just a very few people. I could think of. Usually I would start with, tell us your background, tell us, like, let's kind of get to what has been on people's minds and kind of their personal reactions to what's happened in the world in the last month or so. And so with that, when you saw the George Floyd video, what was your personal reaction to that? What did you think?
To be honest, Bruce, I haven't been able to finish it.
Yeah.
Can't get through it. And I've tried multiple times, and I panic. I panic watching it. And I can't think of much that's more horrifying than watching the slow murder of a human being while 4 people sit on him and people beg. And he's begging for family. So I have not been able to watch the entire thing.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell the audience, this is gonna be a very honest conversation, and we're gonna let it rip in terms of how we felt. So buckle up. No, kidding. But we're gonna be real about this. I'm gonna tell you, when I first saw it, I didn't see the whole thing. I just saw the clips that were shown on television, which were very brief. And sadly, like I was like, another day in America. That was my reaction. Like when I first saw it, I was like, yet another black man being horribly brutalized by the police. And so it was only later when I got to see the length of it and got to see the other angles of it, that then it really, you know, it sunk in. And then when you think about 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and I actually sat for 8 minutes and 46 seconds just to feel what that was like. And that was, it was overwhelming. Like you said, it was just like incredibly powerful to know that this man suffered that way he did. And we saw it all on film, and they didn't care. They didn't care that they were being filmed.
Hand in pocket.
Yes.
The other powerful thing about it and profoundly sad thing about it is that it feels like it has taken this for people to face what I think so many of us have been trying to communicate.
Yeah.
And it's so visceral and so undeniable that it has felt like, you know, the thing that I've been experiencing, and when I'm talking to my friends who are Black, and we're all saying, you may have said it earlier, Bruce, is like, is this a trick? Are people really taking this in a way that they haven't been able to take it in before? And, you know, as we've been getting into honest conversations with people, I felt like we need to own that. We need to say, so I've sat in big meetings with high-level people to say, you have to understand, many of us don't trust this, because it has felt like we've known this forever. There's a woman that we both know, Heather Ray, and Heather years ago shared, some point she's going to correct me and say, Vernon, you got this whole story wrong. Here's how I remember it. She's explained that there's a belief or saying in Native American culture that basically says you need 3 people to create real change. One person can try to do a thing, 2 people, but if you have 3 people, you can actually affect change. And so what I passed along to the person who reached out, speak up, we need your help. If you see someone in a room and they're pitching a suggestion and they're flailing, join the conversation, help them. To me, I think it is a thing because we all get caught up in our own heads and we're focused on the own thing. We sometimes forget how much help we all need so that we are not the only voice in a room trying to make the case or advocate for a thing.
No, I think that's very helpful. And I honestly, I'm trying to keep my ears open for all counsel, because there is wisdom from so many places that we can grab and hold on to. And I think we're all in need of that right now as we try to make our way through this situation. So, you know, for the audience, you grew up in upstate New York, I think outside Buffalo?
Rochester, close.
Rochester.
Outside of Rochester.
Is there a time where you remember experiencing overt racism towards you when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the stories are the typical stories. Junior high, walking through the hall, and you know, a group of kids decided they wanted to call me the N-word every day, every time I
Really?
Yes. And it did not stop until I jumped one of them and got thrown out of school for it. But
which anybody who knows you would know that you jumped somebody and got thrown out of school. That is one mad Vernon. I'm gonna tell you straight up. And so I'm actually quite impressed by that myself, I have to tell you. But if I had somebody calling me the N-word every day, and my blood would be to the point of knocking somebody out too. So good for you.
Well, and I remember feeling like there was no one I could go to. There was no one that would help me. There's probably positives and negatives about this. I think my parents did everything they could to shelter me from racism. So in my adult years, I've learned that when my family moved into their neighborhood, someone spray painted the N-word on a big rock outside of our house. Someone put a snake in our mailbox. And I remember even as a young kid turning into a 10-year-old or whatever, I used to love to have sleepovers. And my mom would allow me to have sleepovers with the neighborhood kids. Finally, she said to me, Vernon, why don't you ever ask yourself why they don't ask you to sleep over at their house? It didn't even dawn on me that there was probably a racial component, but sure enough, it was true. A lot of the white kids did not invite me to sleep over at their house. I think we all have those stories.
We all have those stories.
Yeah.
That we can tell. Tell us about your path in the industry. Tell us about, I'm sure there are many times that you were
all this gray hair. All this gray hair.
Well, I got no hair, so
Well.
you too. So yeah, I know exactly. It all dropped out when we got into this. But tell us about your path. Tell us, who were influential people that you think helped to, or if you had mentors, were they people of color?
My story is so long. I don't even want to go through all of it. But
right.
To the second, I work for some production companies. Here, I'll do this. I work for some production companies in the comedy space. I got hired to join Universal Television after I worked for Paul Reiser for a bit in the comedy space. Almost everybody got fired or quit, and that tended to be a trend as NBC bought Universal. And to me, the more interesting question is the thing you asked, because once I was in the studio system and working in a network system, I think everything else has been pretty traditional. But there have been a few people who have been impactful to me as mentors, including my current boss right now, Jen Salke. She and I have worked together for a very long time, as you know, Bruce. I really think a lot about the people of color who have reached out to me at key points and I think changed the trajectory of my career. There was a woman named Tamara Gregory. She was there with me at my first job at PA job. And I had a boss at the time who I think very much wanted to fire me and kept telling me that I didn't work well with others. And I drove myself crazy trying to help people because I think I'm not a bad guy. So I was bending over, but she pulled me aside, pulled me into her office one day. She was working as an assistant, and she said, the person who has a problem with you is your boss, and here's what's happening. And she, I believe, did that because I think we were at the time the only two Black people in the office. But I was able to turn that situation around because she pulled me aside and helped me understand it. Bruce, I don't know if you remember the breakfast that we had when Universal was being bought by NBC. I think about it often. Here, big old NBC was buying Universal, and they called it a merger, but GE was taking over. Our two companies weren't allowed to talk. And so all the people at my company, Universal, were just waiting to find out, were we going to have a job or were we not going to have a job? We weren't allowed to talk, and I think it was 2 weeks before the merger was official and we were going to talk. You agreed to go to breakfast with me. And I was like, tell me, A, what it's like at your company, and B, do I have a job? And you were brutally honest. You were like, I don't think like, but we were able to have a real conversation. I was able to prepare for my future. And Paula Madison is someone who's been impactful to all of us, but she changed the face of the executive suite at NBC and Universal. And so we got to experience what it was like to have not just one of us or two of us or three of us, but four of us, five of us, six of us in a room, in many rooms. And I will forever be grateful to her.
And do you think you being a person of color has been instrumental in that change, and you, Albert, as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So like I said, you need at least three people. I really do believe that Jen, Albert, and me together have really made a huge difference. You know, Jen arrived, and it was very important for her to create what she's always called a home for talent. Without spilling too much ink, I think we needed a better reputation in the industry in many regards. And one of those was caring more about stories featuring women, featuring characters of color, featuring just diversity in all ways. So we went about immediately going about trying to build that studio. And I think I was watching earlier before I got invited in, Kelly was talking about deals. She's absolutely right. So we've made deals with Michael B. Jordan and Jordan Peele and Barry Jenkins and Lena Waithe and Gloria Calderon-Kellett and Stephen McQueen. And I wrote them all down. There's a list of Cheo and Stephen Forrest Whitaker and Heather Rae, Lisa Joy Nolan, but it's been intentional to build a home for people where they know that this is an attribute that we value and that they can feel safe and encouraged to tell stories. So we have much more work to do, but I'm proud that when we get calls from agents, I can tell by the little gleam, the excitement from the reps that they know that their client who's Black or Asian or Latinx or whatever has a shot here at Amazon Studios because it's something we very much lean into. And that has absolutely been the first big move that we've made.
That's great to hear, first of all. And that list is terrific. Many of those names are established names. And
Yep.
so, is there those new voices? Can they come knocking at the door too and get that same type of, or not the same, but can be welcomed into the room?
Absolutely. Next year we're going to release a show called Them. Them is created by a very special man named Lil Marvin. Lil Marvin had a career in marketing, but always wanted to create shows and quit his job and decided to go write for a year and came back to Hollywood and had this amazing show. Them is a seasonal anthology show where every season looks at a different time in American history where someone was considered other. And it's told through a horror lens. We loved the pitch so much, we bought 2 seasons. Lil Marvin had never worked on a TV show before. We've so loved his work, we've made an overall deal with him, and now Amazon is his home. We're probably a few weeks away from announcing a couple of programs that we're doing, but we are in the process of making a number of deals for writers who have some writing experience, but who may not have experience in Hollywood, and whether those are playwrights or whatever. So we'll have something to announce soon, but you and I know both, Bruce, that the typical process is to bring people in at the very bottom and say, here's your slot. Yay, we've got representation.
Yes.
And look, we did it, check. And that's not what it's truly about. So,
and we discussed that previously too.
It's just
because it's like that's not, you're not gonna have impact that way.
No. So who's your co-EP? Who's your supervising producer?
Mm-hmm.
Who's directing? And when we can insist, who has an executive producer title on your show? So people should know we make deals at all levels, and we're going to be doing even more.
Great, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, our membership are mostly creative execs, and so we don't want to not talk about opportunity. So obviously Amazon and the streamers are definitely looked to as places that people are very interested in and destinations for their career. So as we have discussed, Amazon is a very specific, particular culture.
Yes.
And can you kind of share for people just some aspects of what is that culture and what does it take to be successful there?
I think Amazon prides itself on still feeling like a startup.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come to Amazon, be prepared to work your tail off. Be prepared to be in rooms with really smart people who challenge traditional thinking. Know that it's a blend of, I think, an exciting, creative space and what I would say probably the best and the most challenging parts of tech. So there's definitely a component that is going to say, hey, let's look at a thing from a complete 360 view. And if you haven't thought of the ways in which a thing can go wrong, there's definitely 3 other people in a room who are going to tell you how you missed the way in which a thing can go wrong. So to me, it's been hard, but I think I'm a better executive, and I think I'm a better thinker because of the way in which Amazon tackles. The other thing I love about the place is that it truly is a place where if you've got a great idea about the way in which the business can expand, and you can put that proposal together on paper, there's a chance that the company will say, that's great. And since you came up with that idea, you go run that division. That's absolutely part of the DNA of the company. So it's a place with huge ambition. Obviously, it's grown and it probably will continue to grow. It's not an organization that is heavy with layers. It's an organization full of people who are going to challenge your thinking and push you to think bigger.
And we should also say that the interview process for Amazon is
What have you heard, Bruce?
Yeah, what have I heard? Endless days of interviewing. But it's a daunting process. It's a daunting process, and you have to get through a lot of people.
It's
right?
a day. Yes, it is a day. But there's definitely an intense day of people asking not your traditional interview questions, which is tell me about your background and what have you done. It's more, tell me about the most challenging key moments in your work experience and how did you come to the decision making that you did? And it's all sort of designed to really carve out, okay, who is Bruce Evans as a thinker, as a person who is going to shape the direction of the company? Islam.
All right. Well, I'm going to invite Kelly, I think, to come back to us. And I think it's one of the joys for me, and I'm sure for many, to know that you have risen to the highest levels of your company. And it's a really hopeful accomplishment for all of us that's happened. And I truly hope that people will be inspired by the fact that, it's possible, folks. It is. It's daunting, it's challenging, it's frustrating.
I'll give this piece of advice, which I think absolutely changed, again, the trajectory of my career, which came from Paula Madison when I was fired from NBC and then brought back into NBC. When I came back, she told me one thing, which was, now bring all of you to your job. And I took that lesson to heart. Like I was given a second chance, and I needed to make sure the second chance meant that I was not separating off a part of me and just being the generic exec. There was a reason why I was in the position I was in, and I needed to bring that to what I was doing. And it's made a huge difference.
Thank you, Vernon. So we had a couple of questions. We had one from Sumi Berry. Are you feeling additional pressure to include more diversity in front of and behind the camera? And do you feel your non-diverse colleagues feel the same pressure and responsibility? So I'll throw that to you, Bruce, since I think Vernon has talked a little bit about how Amazon is pressing forward. What do you think's going on at NBC, given all the recent controversies over there with America's Got Talent? What's your take?
I think there's total pressure. I think there's a lot of media companies are saying they're putting a great deal of money towards this. They've said, we've said $100 million. I absolutely feel that people are like, we have to be better. We have to do differently. But I just don't know if they know how to do that. And so I'm going to have to step up, and others in the company are going to have to step up to try to help make sure that, whereas you committed these resources, that they're thoughtfully allocated and in a way that's going to have make for real change and to have real impact. And that's a hard responsibility to have to know that you're going to have to do that, and because you don't want to screw it up, because you want to make sure that what you do is really going to be something that you can be proud of, that people will really benefit from. But we're just going to have to go for it, and we have to make the most of this opportunity, and hopefully we will. But I definitely feel that there's people are feeling the pressure to make true change. Yep, agreed.
Okay, so let's move to a more of a creative question, which is, let's just say someone wants to make a change in their career, executive to executive career. So what would that, if they wanted to move over into a current role or in a development role and they have not historically been over there, but they are at a senior position, how would you recommend they make that move?
So you mean if like somebody's been in marketing and they want to
Yes.
get into the creative world?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
But they're already at a senior level.
I see.
Yeah.
Is it impossible?
It's not impossible. It's a hard transition, because the easiest I've found is for people who have been in research to come into programming, because they have studied people's tastes and likes and the demographic groups. And so that has been the usual people that make the switch, but also I've seen some PR people who have made that switch. But that said, it's not, it should happen more than.
Wait a minute, is it who you know? So let's just say you made an advocate in development who's willing to give you the shot.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
I
think that's incredibly important. Yes. And so I guess I would say network the hell out of people who are in programming and make friends with those development and current people, so that not only when the job comes available, but that your friends are then making the pitch for why you should be the great person to fill that role. Because otherwise it's difficult. And I've certainly seen people who have wanted to make it for a long time, and it's been a really frustrating road.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd add to that is you got to ask for what you want. It's risky to put it out there. So find people you trust, but you also want to do the math of how can I add value to whatever department that I want to get into. And so if no one like you looks like you do or has your perspective, there's a case to be made, especially right now, that you have something to offer that they need. And they might be able to get you for a bargain because you are, you're willing to earn your way there. But yeah, ask for what you want.
So Vernon, you said that Jen Salke's been your champion. How did you get her on board? What was that? Was that organic, or was that something that you went and you fought for?
This is going to sound super calculated, but I have a philosophy which is really basic, which is my job. I have many, many things I need to do with a job, but number one on my job is I got to make my boss's job easier. If I can make my boss's job easier, then they're going to want to keep me around. And so when Jen joined NBC, she had a ton of relationships. She had created hit shows. What she hadn't done was worked at a network before. You should maybe talk to the marketing department right now. Here's what these ratings mean in the context of NBC. And I think very quickly she realized that I was an ally. And I think she also very much, quite frankly, just being super blunt about it, liked having me at her side. So she has, since the beginning, always said, Vernon, come along, Vernon, 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 Vernon. And so we would joke all about it, because if you're in that suite, you would hear, Vernon! I always felt like she was looking to elevate me. And so that's, I lucked out there. The way Amazon would have tackled this is you want to build a case. And so there's the case of this person has been held back too long and they should be given the next opportunity. That's a case you can make, and maybe that wins the day. But you actually, in my opinion, you want to build what's the job, what's the need, why is it that this person is going to give you not 1 + 1 = 2, but 1 + 1 = 3. And so if there's a way to think through and strategize, how do I make this case that is as close to undeniable as possible? I find that usually, in my experience, wins the day. It's when we try to make the case just from you should do it because it's the right thing, that sometimes that can fall on deaf ears.
And we all know that those producers have to be better than everybody else.
Yeah. Yep.
And we do know that they're probably going to have to repeat a level, unlike their white counterparts. So,
Yep.
I would also add, knowledge truly is power. And so if this is someone that you really believe in terms of what they can produce, give them the lay of the land. Like, here's the people in the room. Here's how they react to things. Here's what you can say that will get their attention. This is what their background is. Fill them in as completely as you can, so that it sets them up for success. And this is how things work, because I've always been amazed at how really people have no idea how the network works. And these are producers who have been in business with us for some time, and they will say, well, you all go and you do this, right? And it's like, no, we've never done that, ever. And so educating the people that you're working with as to how things actually work within the network or the studio, and who the people are that are in the room and how they react to things and what their preferences are. And again, it's going to be somebody you really believe in and you want to share that information, because that can bite you in the butt. But that said, giving them as much information as you can so that they can be successful, or giving them the best chance of success.
What else would you like to say that maybe you haven't said so far?
Thank you so much for inviting me. It feels so good to be in a conversation with both of you. It brings back a lot of great memories. Albert, Jen, and I, just to be completely frank, are in a conversation with our recruiters right now about, do they know everyone they need to know around town? So what I would say to you right now is, if you're somewhere and you're interested in Amazon at all, it would be a great time to let us know who you are. And I will make sure that we get your information to Amazon. So, you are on our radar as we look to the future, we look to build. That's my request to anyone who's interested.
Now is the time to stand up. Now is the time not to be shy. Now is the time to say, hey, right here. But you got to have something to say when you get people's attention. So be sure that you've got something that is meaningful and impactful to get people to say, oh, okay, that can't be denied. When I was frustrated and I didn't think anything was ever going to happen, someone said to me that if this is what you love, this is your passion, if this is something that you can't imagine yourself doing anything else, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I have really said that to myself in times when I felt like it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then that voice comes and says, no. This is what you want. This is what you really, truly believe in. So you got to persevere. When they try to smack you down, you just got to sit right back up and keep going.
I was never the right fit until someone said, no, I want that person because she's of color. I want that voice. When someone comes out of a diversity program, it means that they are the best and brightest, and they're going to succeed. Those people are running shows. I can name for you 5 people right now, and one of them's an Oscar nominee. So they exist and they're put in the pipeline. And without them, we weren't getting in the room. So go back and check every single Mad About You, Frasier list of writers, and you pick out the people of color. And if there is one, I'd be amazed, but there probably isn't. So you have to remember that we'll get in the door any way we get in the door, but once we get in that door, we kick ass every single time. That's why it's so important for us to keep moving this forward, and for us to wrap our arms around each other and say it's okay, and that we're here for you. So if you're struggling and you need help, reach out to your mentor. If you don't have a mentor, reach out to the email or reach out to me. We're gettable.
Together, we all have made this 20 years. We've made great strides and we've made real impact. And so thank you for helping make this organization what it is today, and for the boards of the newest extensions of, because we started as Color TV and now we're Color Associates and we're Color Film, and all that happens because of the next generation. And we're so proud of that. And so thank you for your continued commitment to the organization and making it better every single day. So thank you, everybody.
Color talk, color talk, color talk, talking about